If you picture a Roman gladiator fight, you likely imagine a chaotic, lawless struggle where every match ends in death. Archaeological findings at Ephesus suggest the reality was far more controlled. This stone relief is evidence. Researchers examining gladiator skeletons found deep combat scars from swords and tridents, yet many major fractures were fully healed. These injuries required professional medical care, surgery, and physical therapy the average Roman citizen could never afford. This care existed because a trained gladiator was a multi-million-dollar investment. Owners treated their fighters as valuable assets to be protected, not disposable meat for the crowd. The men managing these investments were Lanistas. They were the venture capitalists of the arena, running their business from heavily guarded compounds known as a Ludus. They filled their rosters with prisoners of war and enslaved people. To the state, these men were no longer individuals. They were property. Inside the Ludus, expert trainers micromanaged their lives. Fighters ate specialized diets high in barley and beans to pack on layers of fat, which acted as a natural shield against shallow blade cuts. They also underwent brutal aerobic conditioning. Surviving a fight in heavy armor under the Mediterranean sun required extreme cardiovascular stamina. The Ludus functioned as a professional athletic facility, designed specifically to maintain its human stock. Roman politicians prioritized a prolonged, dramatic show of skill. A quick execution was poor entertainment and a massive waste of money. This mosaic illustrates how matches were engineered, pitting opposite styles against one another. This central fighter, a Murmillo, is defined by his massive shield and helmet for defensive endurance. He'd face an agile Thracian, forcing a disciplined contest of speed against heavy armor. The ring was governed by strict rules. Matches featured active referees and a complex point system that was remarkably similar to modern fencing. To succeed, a fighter had to strike with grace and follow a complex choreography. This discipline turned violence into a highly sophisticated sport. Because of these rules, mortality was rare. The data shows that roughly 10% of fighters died in a typical match. Submission was a formal process. A wounded or exhausted fighter would raise a single finger to signal the referee to stop the fight. Only then would the sponsor and the crowd decide the loser's fate. This was the moment of the Pollice Verso, the turned thumb, which determined if a man lived or died. But the cost of a death blow was immense. If a sponsor ordered an execution, they had to pay the Lanista up to 50 times the fighter's contract value. Cold economics, not mercy, kept gladiators alive. Ordering a death was a luxury that few politicians were willing to pay for. Champions lived like rock stars. Successful gladiators amassed personal fortunes, luxury estates, and massive fan clubs. Their celebrity was so widespread that street vendors sold gladiator-themed merchandise, like these clay oil lamps, to the Roman public. This fanaticism was often dangerous. Support for rival fighters frequently erupted into riots that left dozens dead in the streets outside the amphitheater. Yet, in the eyes of the law, these stars were classified as Infamia. They held the lowest possible social rank, with fewer rights than the poorest free citizen. Wealth was real, but freedom was an illusion. A gladiator remained property, bound to his barracks by law and iron. In 73 BC, Spartacus used the very combat skills the Romans gave him to lead a breakout in Capua, proving that even a celebrity slave was still a prisoner. Amphitheaters served a political function. The Colosseum's massive exterior stood as a permanent display of the state's ability to organize resources and people. Seating was strictly segregated by law. By forcing the audience to sit according to their class and legal status, the state reinforced the social order during every performance. The fighting in the ring was a daily, visible proof of Rome's power. Each bout reinforced the idea that the state controlled the lives and deaths of its enemies. Emperors used this entire industry to maintain their own power. By providing bloody entertainment, they ensured the loyalty of the mob. Gladiators achieved a level of fame that outlasted Rome, yet they lived and died as tools of the state. They were forced to bleed to keep the public satisfied, their lives serving as the final proof of the emperor's authority.